What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. So, I want to get to this border bill. I want to get to this. Republicans stonewalled a border bill, and that's why the immigration crisis is still ongoing. Ladies and gentlemen, it is just not true. Donald Trump did not stonewall a border bill, and it is just dishonest from the other side to come out and say the reason why we have an immigration crisis is because Donald Trump stonewalled or blocked a border bill. Come on, man. That's what I'm saying. It's so dishonest. It's so disingenuous. And the people that say it, they know they're being disingenuous. The problem is you have a lot of uninformed or low information voters out there that when they hear this, they may believe it. And so I think the purpose of this show is to not reach or convince the left. That's never going to happen. It's never been my intentions to try and, persuade the other side to voting for Donald Trump. My one mission on this show is to get to the truth, man, is to get to the bottom of these talking points, is to debunk lies and dishonesty. And so that's what we're going to do today. And so I found the perfect video to do this because it's Megyn Kelly, and she's debating David Pakman. And the reason why I want to play this debate, it's a little bit older, but it really gets to the core of the leftist talking points when it comes to the immigration crisis and whose fault it is. So I want to go ahead and play it, and then we're going to go through this one talking point at a time so that I can show the people out there that may not know, that may, the low information voter out there should know that it was not Donald Trump's fault for the immigration crisis. Okay? Because I think it's important for people to know this stuff. So here we go.
People continue to cross over illegally as they have for, 100 years, 200 years?
So it's the same.
I think that one of the funny things that has
That's not
happened is
honest.
that for months, I'm sorry, I think we're talking over each other.
No, I'm saying that's dishonest. You're saying don't trust the Republicans on their messaging, and you come on here and want to tell me that it's the same. They're just continuing.
No,
there's been no increase.
There have been periods of
a couple of months ago we had 10,000 a day crossing the southern border. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think we're all talking over each other.
Now,
go ahead, David. The floor is yours. Wait, Hogan, I'll bring you in, but let me defend that. Go ahead, David.
Oh, okay. No, listen, based on the Border Patrol statistics, there have been times during the Biden administration where crossings have on average been below where they were under Trump. At some points, they were above that. The funniest part to me about immigration is that now that Republicans themselves torpedoed the bill they wanted because Trump said, no, I need something to run on, I need something to do, Biden puts in place this limitation, which, by the way, doesn't solve the reason people are trying to come here. We need more immigration judges. I'm glad Biden made this point. Now that he did it, they're still not happy. And they're saying, well, it's only for political reasons. Why do you think Trump wanted to do this? It's also for political reasons. So this seems like a political game to me when the reality, Megyn, is we never permanently deal with DACA. We never permanently deal with the reasons people even want to come over here in the first place. It's a lame political football.
Wow. Okay, go ahead. It's fascinating to me for me here. I have to say, David, I appreciate you coming on the show because we don't get a lot of progressives, and they know I don't really agree with them on most things.
I don't know why not.
I actually I appreciate you being here and saying, the way you see these things and the way the left views these things, because it's actually educational.
Well, I don't know about the left, but listen, I'm on the left. Countries have a right to enforce immigration policy. If you're here illegally, of course, you're subject to deportation. I think that there's a caricaturizing that happens of the left on this issue. I'm an immigrant from Argentina. We came here legally. I'm now an American citizen. People still write to me and say, you should go back to Argentina. But listen, I don't want the left characterized as something that it isn't on this issue. You'll never hear me say a country doesn't have a right to enforce policy.
Otherwise,
all right. Let's get into this talking point that Republicans, Donald Trump more notably, torpedoed a border bill for political purposes. First of all, I want to stress to people on the left that Donald Trump gave this country the most secure border in U.S. history. And he did it all without a bill. That's right. This is an article from PolitiFact. Donald Trump never changed one immigration law. Not one. So let's get into this. Trump did not sign any major immigration laws, but he did issue orders that changed policy. So even if the reason why the immigration crisis is continuing is because Donald Trump torpedoed a border bill, the Biden-Harris administration never needed a border bill to begin with. They could have done it through executive actions just like Donald Trump, because that's exactly how Donald Trump gave us the most secure border in U.S. history. It has been decades since Congress enacted major immigration legislation, and that includes Trump's presidency. Trump's time in office saw 472 measures on immigration that had drastic implications, according to one think tank's estimate. His executive actions included efforts to restrict access at the southern border. The reason why they did this fact check was when Chris Christie was running in the race. He said that Chris Christie was blaming Trump for the chaos at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, but the ballooning national debt and for illegal immigrants pouring over our southern border. So Chris Christie was essentially blaming Donald Trump because he'd never enacted immigration laws. But Donald Trump did manage to give us the most secure border in U.S. history. And how did he do that? Through executive actions. The same executive actions that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris dismantled the first few weeks they were in office. Not even the first few weeks, the first 48 hours they were in office, they started dismantling all these policies, 3 major policies, more notably, that had the biggest impact. So no, you don't need a comprehensive border bill to secure the border like Donald Trump had it. All you have to do is have the will to use executive action to secure the southern border. And did Joe Biden and Kamala Harris do that? No. So I want to get into this border bill. You know what? First, let me get into some facts about this first. So here we go. So after Joe Biden took office in January of 2021, his administration moved to dismantle many of the immigration policies enacted during the Trump presidency. And here's a timeline of the actions Biden took to reverse or modify Trump's southern border policies. Number 1, and the biggest one, is the Remain in Mexico policy, the MPP. February 2021, the Biden administration suspended new enrollments in the MPP program. By June 2021, the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, formally ended the policy. However, due to legal challenges, a federal court ordered the administration to reinstate the policy in December 2021, though with limited enforcement. The policy was effectively ended. The policy was effectively ended for good after further legal proceedings in August 2022. That was the biggest one. That pretty much was Joe Biden giving the entire world the signal, the green light, that yes, if you come in here, we're accepting illegal immigrants at this moment. And this is exactly when the illegal immigrants started rushing towards the border. The second policy that the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris administration dismantled was the border wall construction. January 2021, on his first day in office, Biden signed an executive order halting construction of the border wall. This stopped funding and work on all projects that were in progress or planned under Trump. While Biden's administration did not remove sections of the wall already built, no new construction was advanced under his presidency. And in fact, the segments of border wall were already built. They had them laying in a desert where they remain today, if they haven't been auctioned off for pennies on the dollar, where they rust away in the desert. We were literally paying construction workers and entire crews to sit in trailers in the middle of the desert at the border to watch segments of our taxpayer-funded border wall rust away in the desert. That's from the Biden-Harris administration. And then the third policy that they dismantled from the Trump-era policies on immigration, which gave us the most secure border in U.S. history, was Title 42 Public Health Order. In April of 2022, the Biden administration announced its intention to end Title 42 policy by May 2022. citing improving public health conditions and widespread vaccination against COVID-19. However, legal challenges delayed the termination. Title 42 remained in effect until May 2023, when it was officially lifted with the end of the COVID-19 public health emergency. These rollbacks reflected a shift in Biden's immigration priorities, emphasizing a more humane approach to asylum seekers and border management, but they also coincided with an increase in border crossings and renewed debates over border security. Joe Biden did this. Kamala Harris did this. There was no reason for a border bill to begin with if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris didn't dismantle these three major policies from the Trump administration that gave us the most secure border in U.S. history. Now, what were those policies exactly? So the three major policies we already went over was the border wall construction. Why? Because it deters illegal immigrants from coming here in the first place so they don't have to make the dangerous trip here. The Remain in Mexico policy was by far the biggest one, which, in other words, these are asylum seekers that are not allowed to claim asylum while in the United States. So right now, it's pretty much catch and release. You come over to the United States border, they let you in, you claim asylum, and you get to stay while your case is being heard, which is right now a backup of like 10, 15 years. So Donald Trump implemented a common sense policy that makes sense. Is he said, no, if you're going to come here and claim asylum illegally, then you're going to wait in Mexico. You're not going to be waiting 10, 15 years in the United States. You're going to wait on the other side of the border. And what happened? People stopped coming to the southern border. They're like, well, I'm not getting in the United States, so I might as well not even go. So it's a deterrence, which is something the Biden and Harris administration completely dismantled. And then obviously Title 42, the public health order, was one of the things that they implemented. Now, this is why I find it so disingenuous when people on the left convince maybe would-be Trump voters or low information voters that the reason why the immigration crisis is as bad as it is because Donald Trump torpedoed a border bill, just like David Pakman said. This is why I played it. It was a common talking point from David Pakman, and it's a common talking point from people on the left, that the border crisis is Donald Trump's fault. Typical, right? A guy that's been in office for 4 years gave us the best and most secure border in U.S. history. So in other words, you could say he was the only president to not make the southern border issue a political issue. It's so incredible, man. It's so incredible. So to continue on, let's get into this freaking border bill, man. I'm so tired of hearing this. Like, it's so frustrating for those of us that read this stuff every day, for those of us that are in politics and have been following this issue for 8 years. And Donald Trump was the only president in my lifetime to actually secure the southern border. It's so incredible for these people to blame him like they are. So here we go. Let's get into this. They call it bipartisan, right? They call this so-called bipartisan border bill bipartisan. So I guess to make it sound like, oh, both Republicans and Democrats wanted this bill. Well, let's go and let's look at this word bipartisan because it's very misleading. The people that negotiated this bill, so it was negotiated by Lankford from Oklahoma, Chris Murphy, a Democrat from Connecticut, and Kyrsten Sinema, a independent from Arizona. That's what you call bipartisan? 3 people behind closed doors negotiating a bill, mind you, that nobody could even see. We couldn't ask questions about it. They wouldn't answer questions about it. They were negotiating this in secret behind closed doors. That's not very bipartisan to me. How they can even call this bipartisan is insane. And the reason why they call it bipartisan is because they're meaning to be disingenuous. They try and manipulate people. They try and do it because they call it a bipartisan border bill because for low information voters out there, they might say, well, why would anybody turn down a bipartisan bill if all the parties wanted it? No. It's a lie. It's not a bipartisan bill. It was negotiated by 3 people behind closed doors. Lankford, from a Republican from Oklahoma, Chris Murphy, from a Democrat from Connecticut, and Kyrsten Sinema. And even Lankford ended up voting against the bill because it was a disastrous bill. They were negotiating it for 6 months behind closed doors in secret, And the only way the people found out about it was because one of the staffers leaked texts of the bill just days before it was released. And so that knocks out that talking point. It's not bipartisan. So let's go in. Does it actually fix the problem at the border? No, it does not. It doesn't force the Biden administration to end its abuse of the current law. It leaves in place a number of Democrat-created incentives that are fueling the crisis. Yeah, by the way, this bill was 300 and some odd pages long. And guess how long they gave people to read it? 24 hours. So you know it was stuffed full of all kinds of crap. And it was. So here we go. So the proposed bill was 370 pages long, and it was released Sunday evening after months of negotiations that will total over $118 billion, with 50,000 new work visas for illegal immigrants. And Biden's original request amounted to around $106 billion last year. So in just a few months, the bill went from $106 billion to $118 billion. You want to guess where all that extra money's going? That's right, nowhere. Probably in a bunch of people's pockets. So the emergency border proposal appended to the National Security Supplement package. It is aimed at gaining control of an overrun asylum system that has been overwhelmed by historic numbers of migrants illegally crossing the border. The bill proposes to overhaul the system with tougher and quicker enforcement. So again, the bill was not designed to secure the border. It was designed to streamline the entire process, to add more processing agents, to add more beds so that they can let more and more people in here. It wasn't to actually secure the border. It was to just clean it up a little bit, to make it look better so it's not so chaotic. But millions upon millions of illegal immigrants still would have been coming into this country. The bill's provisions come into effect when there is an average of 5,000 or more daily encounters with illegal immigrants over a 7-day period. But I'm going to get to the catch with this in a second. You may sound, oh, that sounds good. You're after 5,000, considering some months we had 10,000 coming in a day. You might say, oh, this is great, but there's a catch to all this. I'm going to get to it in a second. Alternatively, when a combined total of 8,500 or more aliens are encountered on a single calendar day, the calculation considers encounters at Southwest land border ports along southern coastal borders and at the Southwest land border port of entry. But here's the catch. However, this bill states that if the president, quote, finds that it is in the national interest to temporarily suspend the border emergency authority, the president may direct the secretary to suspend use of the border emergency authority on an emergency basis, unquote. Essentially, the, quote, border emergency triggered at 5,000 crossings per day within a week can be overturned by Biden. So the entire bill, the entire process was relying on Joe Biden to actually uphold the bill. So in other words, the same guy that dismantled the border to begin with, that reversed all of the Trump-era policies, the same guy that created the crisis at the southern border, would be the one in charge of determining whether the bill should actually be enforced to begin with. Mind you, more money actually went to Ukraine than it actually did our southern border, which is why me personally, I had a problem with this bill, not to mention it essentially codified illegal aliens crossing into our country, right? Because that's what? Oh, that's 1.8 million illegal entries that are now legal entries in 1 year. But my biggest concern was the 45 or 55 or 80 billion dollars that went to Ukraine. So it was a Ukraine package, not a southern border package. Like I said, folks, the entire talking point that Republicans torpedoed a border bill, and that's why there's a crisis at the border, is so nonsense. It is so dishonest and disingenuous. It infuriates me that these people can lie with impunity like this. That bill was not torpedoed by Donald Trump. In fact, you look into this, you can't find one article that says a senator or a congressman even spoke to Trump about this. I remember doing a video about this bill, 24 hours, if not 2 days before Donald Trump had even mentioned the bill. This was an awful bill from the very beginning. As soon as the text started leaking from the bill, which was like 2 days before it was to be released, all of us said this is a disgusting bill, and how Langford could even negotiate this is beyond me. But you know, one of the biggest supporters of the bill, you know who they were? The non-government organizations. Well, why would that be? Well, because the non-government organization, since the start of the Biden-Harris border crisis, has made $1.4 billion a year in hard-earned taxpayer money. And you might say, well, non-government organizations, well, what are they? Well, they are corporations that are, deceitfully called non-government organizations, even though they're funded by the government. And they're essentially the private-public partnership of taxpayers. And they deceptively call them churches. A lot of them are called like St. John's Church or the Catholic Borders, whatever it is. They deceptively name these NGOs. And they are the ones that are facilitating the border crisis. They're the ones that the government pays. They're the ones where the illegal immigrants go to. And they're the ones that set up the buses and the transportation and the flights and the phones and the food stand, all of that stuff. Mind you, the NGOs are now, or have been, giving pamphlets with voter registration on it, which is a story that we talked about not that long ago. But to sit here and say, this is why I say, to sit here and say that this border bill would have fixed the southern border is asinine. It is a ridiculous statement to make. We didn't need a bill. That is the whole point of all of this, and which is always my rebuttal to people that say this stupid talking point that Donald Trump torpedoed the bill because he wanted to issue to run on. First of all, Donald, you don't need a bill to secure the border. I just read you a PolitiFact article that said Donald Trump did not pass one single immigration bill. Not one. Not one law did Donald Trump pass to fix the southern border. But yet somehow he gave us the most secure border in U.S. history. And he did it through executive actions. The same executive actions that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris dismantled within the first 24 hours of being in office. And I want to actually go through a couple of these videos. So here is Joe Biden signing executive orders the first day in office.
And to better manage our borders. And that's what these three different executive orders are about. And I want to make it clear, there's a lot of talk, with good reason, about the number of executive orders that I have signed. I'm not making new law. I'm eliminating bad policy. What I'm doing is taking on the issues that 99% of them, that the last president of the United States issued executive orders I thought were very counterproductive to our security, counterproductive to who we are as a country, particularly in the area of immigration.
Folks, counterproductive to our country? Those executive orders and policies that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were dismantling the first day in office, they gave us the most safest border in U.S. history. And because of these actions right here, him signing these stupid executive orders, we have more terrorists that have entered our country than any time in U.S. history. You have, actually, you know what? I got another video that's just swelling to watch. It is just, it's so disingenuous. It is so disgusting to sit and watch these videos because of what they did to our southern border. Here, check this out.
U.S. President Joe Biden signed half a dozen executive orders on Wednesday, reversing several of former President Donald Trump's hardline immigration policies. Just hours after his inauguration, Biden also sent an immigration bill to Congress that proposes opening a path to citizenship for an estimated 11 million immigrants without legal status. The executive actions include immediate lifting of a travel ban on 13 mostly Muslim and African countries and halting construction of the U.S.-Mexico border wall. They come as thousands of Central Americans have been on the move in recent weeks, some aiming to arrive at the U.S. border after Biden's inauguration. Biden has also directed the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Attorney General to preserve the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, which protects migrants who came to the country as children from deportation. Biden also issued a memo calling for a 100-day pause on some deportations. He also ended new enrollments in a controversial Trump program known as the Migrant Protection Protocols, which forced more than 65,000 asylum seekers back to Mexico to wait for U.S. court hearings.
Now you want to know why we have the most unsecured border in U.S. history and whose fault it is? And if they're so worried about the children, because that's the big talking point, right? Donald Trump, the kids in cages, mind you, they were cages that Barack Obama built and Donald Trump utilized. But they're so concerned about the kids. Well, how about this one? What if I told you that the Biden-Harris administration has lost over 300,000 migrant children since the start of this administration? Where's all the outrage for the kids in cages? No, now it's just kids under bridges, kids in sex slave camps, and kids in sweatshops.
You testified a moment ago to Senator Butler that every child gets a Know Your Rights presentation. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is that before or after you release them to labor traffickers?
Senator, every child that comes into our care gets a Know Your Rights presentation, as well as...
Have you read these New York Times reports, these stories, the series of stories the New York Times has done on the children who are in your care? Have you read them?
Yes, I have.
Have you read that children are scrubbing dishes, they are operating heavy machinery, they are delivering meals, they are harvesting coffee, they are working construction, they are working as housekeepers, they are working overnight shifts at plants where they are not paid, they are not going to school, they are not cared for, they are not giving meals, almost all of it illegally. Are you aware of that? That's a yes or no.
Yes.
Do the Know Your Rights presentation help them in those situations?
Senator, ORR...
That's a yes or no, I think. Do you really think that you're helping these children by releasing them to labor traffickers and, yes, sex traffickers? 85,000 children whom you have no contact with, and your answer is we gave them a presentation before we turned them over to these people who are exploiting them on a scale not seen in this country for 100 years, a century. A century. It's a disgrace in the United States of America. Let me ask you this. You did an audit, I noticed, where you gave yourself a clean bill of health. So just tell me this. Do you require sponsors to document their relationship with the child?
Senator, we have a thorough vetting process.
Do you require sponsors to document their relationship with the child?
Yes, we go through.
No, you do not. You do not. Have you read the Senate's Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations reports on your office? There was one in 2016. There was one in 2018. There was one in 2020. There was one in 2022. Spanning administrations, what they found is you do not require sponsors to document their relationship with the child. You release them anyway. What about background checks? Do you require background checks on all adults in the household?
In cases where the child is being released to their parents, we do not require background checks. But Senator, I would
Do you require background checks on all adults in the household in any case?
Yes, in some cases we do.
What percentage of cases do you do background checks on the adults in the household?
I don't have that number in front of me.
Do you do home visits in all cases? You can actually see where these children are being released, whose care you're putting them in?
We do not do home visits in all cases. Senator, I'd really like the opportunity to talk about what we are doing.
I know what you're doing, and it's incredibly and totally inadequate.
I wonder if those kids would have been better off in the cages. What do you think? It's so disgusting, man, what these people have done. And what pisses me off the most is how deceitful they are, how dishonest they are about it, how they sit there and blame Donald Trump for all this when these people have lost 320,000 migrant children. So let's get into this article. So this is from the New York Post. This came out about a month ago. The Biden-Harris administration loses track of 320,000 migrant children, with untold numbers at risk of sex trafficking and forced labor. I wonder if those kids would rather be in a detention center separated from their parents or in a forced labor camp. I don't know. Where's all the outrage? Where is all these fake, phony frauds like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez that was crying at the southern border? You guys remember that? Where's she crying for these kids now? They don't even know where the hell, they don't even know where they are. These kids could be in a sex They could be in a sex ring. They could be in a forced labor camp. But where's AOC crying? Where are all the tears from the leftists? Where's all the virtue signaling? Where's all the outrage? You worried about a few thousand kids being detained and separated from their parents, but you're not worried about 320,000 of them possibly being sex trafficked in forced labor camps? This is the faux outrage people are talking about. It is the hypocrisy. It is the double standards. It is the stuff that really, really pisses people off. People that actually know about this, when they hear that Donald Trump's border policies, it's Donald Trump's fault that our immigration crisis is the way that it is. It's truly incredible. This is a crisis. So the Biden-Harris administration has lost track of more than 320,000 migrant children who crossed the border without parents, according to a shocking new report. Untold numbers of children who were released into the U.S. to, quote, qualified sponsors, I'm going to get to in a second, are now at risk of sex trafficking, forced labor, and other forms of exploitation, a Homeland Security Inspector General's report released Monday said. As of May 2024, there are 291,000 migrant children who arrived in the U.S. as unaccompanied minors who were set free and never given a date to appear in immigration court, meaning there is no way to track their whereabouts. Is that not sick? So what do you think is better for these children, to be detained and separated from their parents at the border, or just let loose in the United States with no way of tracking them and nobody knows where they are? It's so crazy, man. That is in addition to the 32,000 children that Immigration and Customs Enforcement authorities released into the U.S. with hearing dates but then failed to show in court, according to the 14-page report, which tracked a period from October 2018 to September 2023. One federal whistleblower said that she believes many of these vulnerable kids could already be in the hands of criminals and sex traffickers. Tara Rodas, who was recruited as a federal government employee to help the Department of Health and Human Services with an influx of migrant kids in 2021, believed she would be doing noble work. However, she told the Post that she was shocked to find that she was handing those children to traffickers, members of transitional criminal organizations, bad actors, bad people. But yet somehow Donald Trump is the bad guy when it comes to the southern border. What these people have done to our southern border and what they have done to these 320,000 migrant children that are just vanished into the United States and in sweatshops and forced labor camps and sex trafficking rings is criminal. What they have done should be a crime. Whoever was in charge of the border, who is ever in charge of this crisis, whoever's responsible for this crisis, should be held up on crimes. Criminal charges. They should be indicted for what they've done to our southern border. And you know who that person was, right? Oh, that was Kamala Harris. You know, the same Kamala Harris that is now telling people she wants to secure the border and be strong on illegal immigration and strong on border security? Folks, the fake and phoniness of all of this is breathtaking. So here's a chart, the most famous chart of all. The Biden world record illegal immigrants, many from prisons and mental institutions, and also terrorists chart. This was the chart Donald Trump was showing at, the famous chart Donald Trump was showing at Butler, Pennsylvania during that rally where he got shot in the head. And luckily he turned his head just at the exact same time the bullet was traveling through the air and he did not get assassinated on live television. Well, this is the chart he was looking at. And as you're looking through this chart, it's actually quite shocking. The numbers are insane. So you start here in June 2012, you're looking at 40,000. It spikes. Sometimes it goes up to 60,000. Then you go to the Obama family detention policy, and the numbers go down a little bit, right? This is when Barack Obama built the cages. The cages that the cages they blame Donald Trump for? Yeah, Obama built those cages in 2015. But let's skip over here to 2019. This is the interesting part. So in the summer of 2019, new DHS tools begin. And when you notice, the Trump tariff threat leads to Mexican cooperation. So it was spiked right up here. And what does it do? It freaking plummets all the way down to the lowest numbers on record. That's it. Donald Trump and the Department of Homeland Security tools caused it to drop significantly. And then, if you'll notice, right here where this red arrow is, Trump leaves office. And what do you see here? You see unbelievable increases in numbers. All the way up to here at the peak, which was 300,000. 300,000 illegal immigrants in one freaking month. And Donald Trump would say many from prisons and mental institutions, and also terrorists. Joe Biden did that. Kamala Harris did that. That was not anything Donald Trump did. You can't, these people opened this border up and created this crisis on purpose. I showed you the video. They purposely opened up this border.
And to better manage our borders. And that's what these three different executive orders are about. And I want to make it clear, there's a lot of talk, with good reason, about the number of executive orders that I have signed. I'm not making new law. I'm eliminating bad policy. What I'm doing is taking on the issues that 99% of them, that the last president of the United States, issued executive orders I thought were very counterproductive to our security, counterproductive to who we are as a country.
Counterproductive to our security. We have a record number of terrorists that have entered this country through our southern border. And you know the best question of all to be asking is if Joe Biden, if he could sign executive orders dismantling Trump's border policies, why can't he sign executive orders to actually secure the southern border? So you do this for 4 years, you do this for 3.5 years, and then 2 months before an election, you want to sit and blame Donald Trump for the southern border crisis that you created? This is why it's all fake and phony, folks. It's all fake and phony. This is exactly why I wanted to do this video. I think this is exactly what people need to see. It's exactly what people need to hear. Donald Trump gave this country the most secure border in U.S. history. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris dismantled his policies the first day in office, causing the worst border catastrophe in U.S. history for the last 3.5 years. This so-called bipartisan border bill was neither bipartisan, nor did you even need a bill to do it and to secure the border in the first place. All you had to do was do nothing. They could have left Donald Trump's policies in place, touched nothing, and we wouldn't be here today. So they blame Donald Trump for, creating politics out of the border bill. They blame Donald Trump for torpedoing the bill for political reasons. Who was doing it for politics? Because if Joe Biden, Kamala Harris did nothing, it wouldn't even be an issue. So who actually created the issue? And who actually fixed it? For the first time in my life, by the way. So for all the voters out there, the people, the independents, I don't think there's many of you at this point. I think it's really important that you know who created the crisis at the southern border and who actually fixed the crisis at the southern border for the first time in my lifetime. Did we actually have a president that was willing to actually fix the border? And now all of a sudden Kamala Harris wants the border wall. Are these people fucking nuts, man? Do they do. They think the American people are dumb. But I got news for them, man. I don't think there's enough dumb American people out there to get these fake, phony frauds across the finish line. What they did to our southern border is egregious. Losing 320,000 migrant children to labor camps, to sex trafficking rings, is egregious. And for Kamala Harris to have the gall to come out on stage and tell the American people, lie to them, and say now she wants a secure border when she was in charge of the southern border for the last 3.5 years. Don't fall for it, folks. I'm telling you, don't fall for it. What these people have done, these people should pay the political price for what they've done to our southern border. And the only way to do that is by not voting them into office. is not electing them and promoting them to the highest level in our government, to the most powerful position in the world. That's how you send a message that what you did to our southern border is not okay. What these people did to our country is not okay. And the only way to make these people pay the political price is by not promoting them and giving them a raise. It is the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life, but it does match the times we're in. We are in insane times. We're up and down, we're up is down and down is up, left is right, right is left. That's the times we live in. The heroes are villains and the villains are heroes. But listen, my fellow Americans, if you elect Kamala Harris and this Obama regime, you're essentially telling them what they did to our southern border is acceptable. And they will do it again because they'll think that you want it. So, I don't know. We got, 40 days, 45 days before the election. And now these people are concerned about the southern border. It is so disgusting. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you for tuning in. If you want to support the podcast, you can download the podcast, the audio version, anywhere podcasts are found. Smash the like button on this video. And I'm going to be back on here in a little bit to give you some more. I want to talk about some transcripts about January 6th. I think it's pretty revealing, and it goes to it points the finger directly where it points the responsibility at where it belongs, and that is with the people. What this transcript shows, that was just this transcripts just came out. It is from Chairman Barry Loudermilk. He's the one investigating January 6th. What it reveals is that the same people pointing the finger at Donald Trump, blaming him for January 6th, are the same people that were responsible for what happened on January 6th. It's crazy, man, but it is so in line with what we've been watching the last 3.5 years. Accuse your opponents of what you yourself are guilty of. It's mind-blowing to me how people are falling for this stuff. Anyways, all right, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. I want you guys to have a good day. God bless you. God bless America. And long live the Republic. You guys have a good one. Bye-bye.